What is creaking? Buy a house built in the 50s, they said. It would be fun, they said. It's probably Ryan trying to get out of the basement. Hey guys, it's Ash from Smashing Warrior Props, and today we're going to go over the the intro stages of how to cut out foam. The background of the set is different than it is for the rest of the video because I recorded this a couple weeks ago, and for some reason the focus is giving me trouble on my camera, and I was completely out of focus, and Ryan, I didn't really want to let him out of the basement to make him do an intro. So yeah, I know for a lot of veterans out there, this is gonna seem kind of silly, but I really wish when I had started with like foam smithing and like, you know, plastics and manual work, somebody had done something like this, just so that way I knew what I was doing right and wrong and could compare and develop my own methods. So this is really just gonna kind of dive into the basics of how to cut out foam, how to treat it, like what tools to use, and yeah, there will be a follow-up video for how to do like advanced cuts, like different angles, different grooves, like V cuts, outward cuts, undercuts, shrimp po' boy, shrimp etouffee. Stay tuned for that, or if there's any other techniques you want to see, drop them down in the comments, and I'll go take a gander at them. So for starters, there are several different knives, cutting tools, and stuff available. The very first one that I had, do I actually still have it? I do not. I thought I did, but I digest. The first set of cutting utensils I had, the regular razor utility knives. They have these shaped blades. These are nice in the beginning. I'm not a big fan of them. Like I use them to mostly clean stuff, if I'm being quite honest. They are really nice for cutting 2mm foam. It does give nice clean cuts. Where's the camera lens? Which don't leave a whole lot of fuzzies. They stay relatively sharp, and they are easy to sharpen if you need to. But again, this just isn't my personal preference. You can use these if you want. A safe storage tip, if you do use this kind and you exchange the blades frequently, take an old leftover peanut butter jar, cut a slit in the lid, and store these in there. Keeps you from accidentally stabbing yourself when you throw them in the trash can. Next up, we have my kind of go-tos. The extendable utility knives. Now, I frequently buy several of these to have on hand, just in case, you know, you lose one, you're doing several different projects, or, you know, whatever, you have somebody else in the shop. These are relatively inexpensive, and I have had these for years. They do come in, obviously, a couple different sizes. The chunkier one, I think it's 18mm. These are really, really awesome for cutting. Good practice. We're gonna sharpen a little bit. These are really, really nice for cutting a thicker foam. So like your 10mm, your 6mm, or if you don't buy SKS, you can get like 20mm stuff. I kind of stopped cutting by hand, or like cutting with this kind of knife at the 10mm mark, and then I switch over to like a saw, a bandsaw, or whatever if I go higher than that, but we'll talk about that in an advanced video. So for like your 10s and 6s, I really like this stuff. It stays really nice straight, and there's no fuzzies. Again, that is about keeping pressure on and making sure your blade stays sharp, which we'll talk about in this video as well. The only downside to these chunky ones is they do make doing curves not as graceful. So you can see I did that curve, and I have some leftover fuzzies, which is not, it's not the end of the day. I can sand those off. But you can also see with the chunkier ones trying to make curves, your blade kind of wants to stay. It follows the same principle of like a bandsaw. The reason you use a thinner blade is to make tighter curves, and I can show you like so. So I did that one swoop, cut, stayed straight all the way through. So that's kind of your general gist with your chunkier blades. I like these for straightaways and straight edges on thicker foam. So the general purpose, again, that I have for these, I use for straight edges on pieces that don't have curves on thicker foam. End of story. The nice thing about these, you can sharpen your blades. Super simple. You get a little whetstone like so. go forward. I am trying not to say anymore. Forward, forward, back. I get in the habit of doing that every few cuts, and that just keeps the blade sharp. Just super simple. Let's talk about the next one. Next on hand, we have the 9mm extendable. These I use the most. I use these for just about everything, especially for like medieval fantasy where I use thinner foams. I typically do these for just about anything. Same basic principle. You can buy blade refills. You can also sharpen them. And so we have a piece of 4mm HD foam, and just to kind of demonstrate, it does small cuts really, really well. Also does curves pretty well. Also really good for, or I didn't put enough pressure. I'll talk about that as well. So those curves super, super well. The only downside is doing things like, so say we have a piece on our template that is a rectangle. When you do this, go slit 1, slit 2, and then you have this top part right there. The only downside with using these is to get a perfect cut and keep it flat. You oftentimes have these extra little corner pieces in there that are gonna kind of stick out and make it not exactly rectangular, and that's because this is an angled blade. So when you plunge into the foam, you're not going straight down. You have that angle that you're pulling back, and then trying to cut tight corners is the only downside to these. Because again, you see, got little extra divots on the side there. There is a workaround for that, which we'll talk about next. These also do cut 10mm relatively well. I have noticed that the thicker the foam using the 9mm blades, the faster the blade snaps, and I'll show you that now. So if you have a piece of your blade that's gummed up that you need to get rid of, there are several safer ways to do this. Don't just, I'll knock it down a notch. Don't just press and snap, because I have no idea where in the hell that just went. That's dangerous, especially if you, like my dog is no longer downstairs, especially if you have dogs or kids walking in your shop. That is dangerous, don't do that. The way that I like to is I take it, I put my pointer finger down on the side of the blade, not on the edge, and just snap. Super, super, super simple. My disposal tip follows the same thing. Take a peanut butter jar that you're not using anymore, rinse it out, cut a slit in the lid. I like the ones with the trigger at the bottom. They're just, I've had the ones with the screw wheel at the bottom, but again, that part doesn't really matter. Super, super nice, easy, affordable. I think these are like $5 at Lowe's. The refills are maybe like $9. And if you sharpen your blades, that'll just prevent you from getting fuzzies and then prevent some extra sanding. Up next, we have a series of X-Acto hobby knives, or whatever you want to call these. You can get these in packs just about anywhere. And the cool thing about these is you get different shaped blades. I'm not gonna go into every single shape blade that they have available, but they have several that are good for a variety of different things, purposes, and different kinds of cuts. So they've got little ones like that. They've got bigger ones like so. That's the kind of traditional X-Acto shape. And they've got funkier ones that do different things. So with these almost put doing 10mm foam off of your to-do list. Because you can see even at the deepest part of the blade, I'm not going all the way through the foam. See? And if I separate it, I've got this really ugly edge at the bottom, which is going to need sanding. These are super nice for doing complex curves. So if you have a super tight set of curves, or a square, or really narrow pieces, something like the Helldivers detail piece right here. I used exclusively the smaller knives to get into those various tight angles right there. They also have a square or rectangular punch blade. I don't think I actually have one. I think I need to order a new one, but you get the point. These are super nice for doing like 2mm foam. I almost exclusively use this one because it super good at making tight, intricate curves. You can even do Let's see if I still got it. You can do a 2mm foam dowel. It's gonna be incredibly tiny. Let's see if we got it. I don't know if the camera picked that up, but it's a 2mm foam dowel. So it's a triangle dowel at 2mm deep. Again, these are super great for doing tight detailing, especially like filigree or detailing pieces, you name it. These are super good for stuff like that. This isn't done, so don't judge. The Doom helmet that I've done. A lot of these details, this is 100% HD foam. A lot of these details I ended up going in and doing with one of these, because they're super tight knit, super fun helmet to build, super good for doing in-depth details like that. The only downside to these, I don't have much luck cutting plastic with these like your Sintras or your PVC. With these, your extendable ones, I can cut Sintra plastic really easily and plastic strips. So again, these kind of take the cake for your, if you only have the budget for one, get one of these. This is mostly all you'll ever need. Once you get to the point where you're doing extremely high detailed stuff, I would recommend getting some smaller blades. I don't necessarily think you need to get like the style, like utility carpet blade, but again, that's up to you. Now, I have had a couple people ask if I can use scissors on foam, and you can. That's totally something that you can do. It does depend on the scissors that you're using, the sharpness of them, and you know, again, it depends on where you're at and what you have access to. So I've had these scissors for quite a while. They're really awesome utility scissors. And I'll show you why I don't like using these on foam, or on at least anything thicker than 2mm. So with this, when you cut it, obviously you have to make more than one cut. It does leave a hump in the middle when you cut it, because you're having to make 2 cuts. If you're doing like small, tiny strips, I can see it being worth it. But if you're cutting out like a big shape, I wouldn't recommend using scissors. Now again, if you're cutting out a cool detail out of 2mm and you've got a steady hand, I do think doing scissors is totally okay. But again, look at your scissors, make sure they're sharp. If you know how to sharpen scissors, keep them sharp regularly. But you know, that's again, up to you. The only other downside I can see to using scissors is sometimes it will kind of bevel your or fillet your edge a little bit, so it's rounded because it's pushing in to create that cut. So again, scissors are totally fine if you're just starting, but if you plan on doing this for a while and plan on making high quality stuff, I would recommend getting one of the extendable utility knives. There are several different methods and cutting styles to do. I'm going to demonstrate most of what I want to talk about on a piece of 6mm HD foam. The type of foam also does come into play as well. HD foam, it is the best on the market. It will dull your blades a little bit faster, but not by a whole lot, especially if you are sharpening your blade every other cut or whatever. But lower density foam won't dull your blades near as fast, but it doesn't yield high quality results. So there's a couple things I want to talk about. I want to talk about blade pressure and how to actually cut this stuff. When you're doing this, obviously take into account the thickness of your foam. You'll quickly learn to memorize the thicknesses and depths just based on the side profile. This is obviously 6mm HD foam, so it is always healthy. I don't like to frequently have my blade extended all the way out, because when you apply too much pressure or you slip, you run the risk of snapping your blade, which again, they're not free, so let's try not to do that. Let's get in the practice of, if you're, again, wanting to get a good visual, take your blade, lay it on the corner, and extend just over the thickness of the foam, like so. This will prevent you from putting too much pressure on anything, on the blade itself especially. I mean, we're human, so we're not perfectly accurate. So if it wobbles, it will snap, which can be a hazard. But again, we'll demonstrate. So watch when I do this. I'm going to push forward first to initiate the cut, like so, and then pull. Now, I know everyone's mom and dad said don't pull towards you when you cut stuff, but if you're going slow and you're going nice, you don't really run a thread. Obviously, don't keep your thumb in the way, because, you know, boom, that's going to be a problem. So a lot of the times if I'm doing something, I will keep my palm like so, or keep your fingers spread out, and always stay in front of your fingers. Super simple, super basic safety tip. The other thing you can do is pick up these nice 1, 2, 3 blocks. Mine aren't nice. I've had these for probably 8 years. They're essentially, you can use these for just about anything, but they're heavy enough that you can lay it on there. And I mean, yeah, I mean, it's still gonna pull because friction is gonna cause the foam to want to move, but you know, you get the point. So there I just had a botched cut, and what caused that botched cut was I pulled my pressure off of the foam. So if you see me making these straight cuts, it's because I've been doing this for a long time. If your cuts are not perfectly straight the first time, don't worry about it. So if I go in, and it's really hard to show pressure, but if I don't put enough pressure in there, that is not cutting all the way through. Again, you're not trying to bully the son of a bitch. You're really, which you can go back, and again, you can cut again. You just run the risk of not having a perfectly smooth edge. Pick that up. Yeah, you can kind of see there's 2 tiers there. When I do this, again, I'm gonna push forward to get the cut started, and then pull, and keep constant pressure. Just, I mean, absolutely constant, and then you won't run the risk of doing this. Now, what happens if you have...
What happens next may disturb you. If you have sensitive ears, or you're a seasoned maker, I recommend you look away.
Gonna absolutely ruin this blade. What happens if you have a dull blade? Now, inspecting your blade is something, I don't know if the camera's gonna actually pick it up, but my blade is pretty screwed up now. So if I have, yeah, it's not wanting to cut all the way. And you'll get a feel for it. And if you try to put a lot of pressure with a dull blade, you get fuzzy foam, like so. You can tell the blade was incredibly dull. Yeah, I'm like putting a bunch of pressure on it and it's not going all the way through. It's taking like a substantial amount of force, and you see that's what you get. So if you're routinely getting this and you're not sure why, it's probably because you need to sharpen your blade. Sometimes what can cause that is the tip of your blade. If there's any damage on the tip of your blade, that will prevent a full puncture going all the way through the foam, which if you have a botched start, it's not gonna go through. And what I mean by that is when I push in, you can see there's the blade right there. So it should go all the way through the foam. If you puncture and it doesn't go all the way through, you're gonna get botched cuts. So there's kind of your basics of cutting. This is pretty much, you know, how to cut general shapes, super nice straight edges and whatever. In the next video, I'd love to do an in-depth discussion on advanced cuts like bevels and angles and half cuts, like that, or doing cool stuff like custom-sized triangle dowels. So again, there are a various amount of advanced cutting techniques that I will talk about in a future episode if people so, and I lost a bunch of blades. So that was kind of the intro into cutting techniques. It is just basics. It's super simple. There are various other cutting techniques and ways to cut foam using punches, using drives, using shanks, using saws. You name it. There are various other advanced techniques to cutting foam, and if you'd like to see that, drop a comment down below. I would love to know how else I can help beginners out. If there is a technique or something that you struggle with, drop it in the comments section down below. Let me know what I can help you out with. I'm more than happy to cover this. Again, I want to have a whole series of beginner stuff just to help you out. All of my socials are linked down in the description. I am most active on Instagram, so if you're struggling with something or have a question on a template or a tutorial you'd like to see, anything really, I'm pretty engaged over there. Yeah, that should do it for this video. I don't know what we're gonna cover next. I'll think about it. Oh, there's a Patreon.